The morning sun had barely risen over Cedar Falls, Colorado, when something happened that no officer in the town's K-9 unit had ever seen before. 6 police dogs, Rex, Shadow, Bolt, Ember, Koda, and Finn, were walking in perfect formation during a routine patrol. Their paws tapped rhythmically against the pavement, their breath steady, their training flawless. Until, in an instant, everything shattered. Rex stopped first. His ears shot up, tail stiff, nose trembling. The other 5 mirrored him like a ripple spreading across still water. And then, without warning, they all lunged forward, pulling their handlers so violently that one officer nearly fell to the ground. Their target? A middle-aged street sanitation worker pushing a rattling trash cart along the curb. "Hold them! Hold them!" the sergeant shouted, but the commands meant nothing. The dogs ignored every order, every command they had obeyed perfectly for years. Citizens froze. Cars stopped. A teenager lifted his phone to record. To the crowd, it looked like an attack. But when the 6 dogs finally reached the man, they didn't bite. They surrounded him, sat down, whined. One even pressed its head against his leg. The man's hands shook. Tears slid down his cheeks. And in a trembling whisper that silenced the entire street, he said, "They remember me, don't they?" A truth buried for 2 years was about to surface. Cedar Falls was the kind of American town that people often drove through without noticing. A quiet grid of tree-lined streets, brick storefronts, and early rising workers who liked things predictable. Among the most respected symbols of that predictability was the Cedar Falls Police K-9 unit, known statewide for its discipline and spotless record. Every morning at 6:15, without fail, the 6-dog team began its patrol along the downtown loop. There was Rex, the leader, broad-shouldered, amber-eyed, with a stare that could slice through fog. Shadow, sleek and silent, whose paws barely made a sound. Bolt, always tense like a coiled spring. Ember, calm but alert, the kind that noticed everything. Koda, gentle but fiercely protective. And Finn, the youngest, eager and sharp. Their handlers trusted them completely. In Cedar Falls, people often joked that the dogs were more dependable than most politicians. Every morning, the dogs passed the same faces: commuters grabbing coffee, an elderly couple feeding pigeons by the fountain, and at the far end of Main Street, Lucas Hayes, the sanitation worker who started his shift before sunrise. Lucas kept to himself. He pushed his metal cart with slow, methodical motions, humming quiet melodies that no one recognized. His uniform was always clean, but his eyes carried a tiredness that didn't match his steady work ethic. Most people barely noticed him. To them, Lucas was simply part of the scenery, someone who showed up every day, did his job, and disappeared before the town fully woke. The K-9 unit didn't pay him much mind either. For 2 years, the dogs had walked past him without so much as a bark. Lucas would give them a small nod, sometimes a soft smile, and nothing more. But on the morning everything changed. Something in the air shifted. Rex slowed his pace long before reaching Lucas's corner. His breathing hitched. His ears flicked toward the sanitation worker. The others followed, forming a subtle stagger in their formation. None of the officers noticed it yet, but the dogs did. Something buried deep in instinct, memory, and scent, had stirred. Rex was the first to break formation. His paws, usually so sure and steady, hesitated upon the pavement. A faint tremor ran through his body, so subtle that only someone who truly understood him would have noticed. His handler, Officer Martinez, whispered, "Easy, boy," but Rex didn't seem to hear. His amber eyes were fixed on Lucas Hayes, the sanitation worker sweeping fallen leaves into a pile. Then Shadow stopped. Bolt, Ember, Koda, Finn, 6 dogs, 6 bodies locked in place, 6 sets of eyes locked onto the same man. It was as if the morning sunlight itself had frozen. Officer Daniels frowned. What's gotten into them today? Lucas hadn't noticed yet. He was humming softly as he swept, the same simple melody he always hummed, a tune that drifted into the air like a memory trying to take shape. His movements were gentle but deliberate, as if he were brushing something more fragile than leaves. Rex took one slow step forward. His nostrils flared. He inhaled deeply, longer than usual, pulling in a scent that made his ears fall back and his tail lower in an unmistakable sign of confusion. He looked almost emotional. Bolt's reaction was different. His breathing quickened. He circled once, low growls rumbling in his chest. Not aggression, but restlessness. Something in Lucas's scent had unsettled him. Finn let out a soft whimper. Not loud, not dramatic, but enough to send a shock through the handlers. Okay, what is going on? Officer Martinez muttered. He tugged gently on Rex's leash. Rex didn't move. All 6 dogs stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a quiet wall across the sidewalk. Pedestrians slowed, sensing tension. A woman paused mid-step, her coffee cup trembling slightly. Lucas finally looked up. He froze. His eyes widened, not with fear, but with a kind of aching recognition, like someone seeing a ghost from a past life. His broom slipped from his hand and clattered onto the pavement. For a brief moment, no one moved. Just the sound of wind brushing through the trees and 6 dogs breathing heavily, waiting, watching. Lucas took a half step back, gripping the handle of his cart. His lips parted, as if he wanted to say something, but no words came. Rex tilted his head. There was longing in that gesture, and hurt, and something older, buried deep beneath 2 years of routine patrols and silent mornings. A memory Rex couldn't articulate, but one his instincts refused to forget. Officer Daniels noticed the faint tremble in Lucas's fingers. You all right, sir? Lucas nodded too quickly. Yes. Just startled. But the dogs knew that wasn't true. Something invisible was pulling at them, threads of scent, emotion, and memory weaving together in a way only animals could understand. And for the first time in 2 years, Lucas realized the dogs had finally recognized him. The officers regrouped, gently tugging on the leashes, trying to coax the dogs back into formation. But the canines didn't budge. Their bodies stayed rigid, angled toward Lucas with an intensity that made even passers-by uneasy. Come on, Rex. Heel, Officer Martinez commanded again, firmer this time. Rex had never disobeyed a heel command in his entire career. But now, he didn't even flick an ear in response. Ember began pacing, in small, anxious circles, her nails clicking rapidly against the concrete. Shadow stayed perfectly still, one paw slightly raised, nose pointed toward Lucas as if he were detecting something hidden, something buried beneath the surface of the man's calm expression. Finn let out another quiet whine, the kind reserved only for loss, injury, or old ghosts. Lucas took a shaky breath, forcing himself to stay composed. I'm fine, really. Maybe they smell something in the trash, he said, gesturing weakly toward his cart. But that wasn't it. The dogs were ignoring the cart completely. Their attention remained locked on him. Officer Daniels attempted to lighten the moment. Maybe you've been carrying treats around, sir. These guys have a 6th sense for snacks. A couple of bystanders chuckled nervously, but Bolt didn't think it was funny. His hackles stayed raised, not in aggression, but in agitation. He kept glancing between Lucas and the officers, as if trying to communicate something none of the humans could decipher. Finally, Officer Martinez stepped closer to Lucas. Sir, have you interacted with police dogs before? Any reason they'd react to your scent? Lucas swallowed hard. No, not in a long time. It wasn't a lie, but it also wasn't the truth. Rex stepped forward again, Just one paw, slow and deliberate. His breathing deepened. Then he leaned his head slightly to the right, nostrils flaring as if trying to pull apart layers of scent only dogs could perceive. He recognized something, something faint, faded. Damaged by time and smoke and grief, but familiar. The officers didn't catch it. They exchanged worried glances, chalking the incident up to a fluke, maybe a stray smell on Lucas's uniform. "All right, let's keep moving," the sergeant finally ordered. "We'll circle back if needed." Reluctantly, painfully, the handlers tugged their K9s away. But every few seconds, each dog, one after another, turned its head back toward Lucas. Not one of them wanted to leave. Lucas watched them disappear around the corner. His chest tightened, breath unsteady. For 2 years, he had prayed this day would never come, that the past would stay buried. But Rex had looked at him today as if seeing through every lie he had told himself. And Lucas whispered under his breath, voice trembling, "Not yet. Please, not yet." The first warning had been given, and no one noticed. The next morning, Cedar Falls woke to its usual quiet rhythm. Delivery trucks humming through intersections, shop owners lifting metal shutters, and Lucas Hayes sweeping the sidewalk long before sunrise. The sky was a pale orange, the kind that softened the edges of the world. But the dogs felt the tension long before they saw Lucas. As soon as the K9 unit turned onto Main Street, Rex stiffened. Shadow slowed. Bolt released a low rumble in his throat. Ember's ears twitched. Koda and Finn began scanning the street with searching eyes. Officer Daniels sighed. Not again. But it was too late. The second Lucas came into view, pushing his cart, head lowered, the dog's behavior changed instantly. Rex broke from formation first, jerking his leash so hard that the metal clasp clanged loudly. Officer Martinez barely kept his grip. Then Shadow followed, pulling Daniels 2 steps forward. "Whoa, easy, easy!" Daniels barked. Bolt began circling again, faster this time, tail high and stiff. Ember leaned forward, whining with a desperate, almost pleading tone. Finn crouched low to the ground like he was approaching someone he once knew, but wasn't entirely sure belonged to the same world anymore. Pedestrians stopped. Some recognized the dogs from yesterday. A couple of teenagers whispered, lifting their phones to record. "Is that the same guy? Dude, why are the dogs obsessed with him?" "That's kinda creepy." Lucas froze when he noticed the commotion. His hands tightened around the handle of his cart. His chest rose and fell with trembling breaths. Rex yanked again, harder this time, so hard that Officer Martinez stumbled forward. That had never happened. "Rex! Heel!" he shouted. Rex didn't just ignore the command. He growled. Not at Lucas, but at Martinez, his own handler, because Martinez was stopping him from reaching Lucas. Every officer in the unit went silent. No one had ever heard Rex growl at a human, let alone his handler. Lucas's face paled. Officer Daniels, trying to keep control, approached Lucas slowly. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the cart." Lucas shook his head. They don't need to come any closer." But Rex disagreed. With a sudden, forceful lunge, he pulled Martinez forward and nearly dragged him across the sidewalk. The other dogs surged with him, their instincts aligned, syncing like a single heartbeat. A small crowd formed. Someone shouted, "Oh my God, are they going to attack him?" But the officers knew this wasn't aggression. It was recognition, raw, urgent, painful, the kind only a dog could feel. Lucas backed against the brick wall, breath shaking, eyes glossy with fear, not of the dogs, but of the truth clawing its way back to the surface. And in a voice so low, only Rex seemed to hear it, Lucas whispered, "Please, don't make me relive it." But the dogs had already made their choice. They weren't letting go. By the third morning, the officers were already on edge before the shift even began. Whispered conversations filled the locker room. "You think he's hiding something? What if the dogs picked up danger?" "No way. He's just a sanitation worker." "Yeah, but these dogs don't make mistakes." Even the handlers, professionals, trained to read every twitch of muscle, every flick of an ear, couldn't explain what was happening. There was no threat. Lucas carried no weapons. His record was clean. He kept to himself. By all accounts, he was invisible, except to the dogs. The moment they turned onto Main Street, the tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Rex stopped dead in his tracks. His chest expanded with a deep inhale, as if he were breathing in the past. Shadow pressed low to the ground, muscles trembling. Ember began whining again, not startled this time, but mournful, almost grieving. Lucas was sweeping the same corner, same posture, same quiet humming, but something in his eyes had changed. They looked more hollow, more resigned, as if he'd spent the entire night expecting this moment. When Rex lunged forward again, Officer Martinez didn't fight the pull this time. He loosened his grip slightly, allowing the dog to step closer, but cautiously. The officers formed a loose perimeter, hands ready but hesitant. Citizens gathered faster today. They had seen the videos online. People pointed phone cameras. Some stood on tiptoes. Lucas's broom stopped mid-sweep. Rex walked straight up to him, slow, deliberate, no aggression in his body language. His nose touched Lucas's pant leg, inhaling sharply, then again, tracing upward until it reached the sleeve of his jacket. That was when it happened. Rex suddenly whined, loud, aching, primal. It was the sound a dog makes when it recognizes someone it loved, someone it lost, someone it never expected to smell again. Finn lowered his head and pressed it against Lucas's shoe. Ember looked up at Lucas with glassy eyes. Shadow sat beside Rex, tail sweeping the ground once. Slow grief. Bolt paced frantically around them as if trying to piece together a memory. Koda leaned forward, nose quivering, sniffing Lucas's hands like he was searching for a ghost. The officers exchanged confused glances. "Why are they acting like he's family?" "That doesn't make sense." "What do they smell on him?" Lucas's throat bobbed. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold himself together. His hands trembled as he clutched the cart. A tear slipped down before he could wipe it away. Officer Daniels stepped closer. "Sir, I need to ask you honestly. Have you ever worked with police dogs before?" Lucas shook his head. But Rex wouldn't accept that lie. The dog nudged Lucas's hand, firm, insistent. Lucas crumbled. His shoulders heaved, and in a broken breath he whispered, almost pleading, "Please, don't make them remember." But it was already too late. The dogs had remembered, and so had he. By the fourth morning, officers didn't even pretend things were normal. Every handler tightened their grip before the patrol began. Every conversation carried the same, uneasy question. Why him? Why a quiet sanitation worker? Why 6 dogs reacting with the same unsettling mix of grief and urgency? The K9 unit started down Main Street, their paws tapping the familiar rhythm on the pavement. But today, something was different. The dogs anticipated. Their bodies lowered before they even rounded the corner, as if they could sense Lucas's presence through walls and distance. Officer Martinez muttered under his breath, "Here we go again." And there he was, Lucas Hayes. Same uniform, same cart, same quiet humming. But this time, the moment he looked up and saw the dogs, he stopped humming. Rex surged forward with a force that startled even the seasoned officers. His tail shot straight down, ears pinned back, nostrils flaring intensely. He wasn't acting out. He was tracking, searching, confirming. Shadow pressed forward too, pulling Officer Daniels 3 full steps. Bolt barked sharply, once, twice, the sharp kind of bark he used only during search operations. Ember let out a soft, trembling cry. Koda and Finn moved in unison, not waiting for permission. This wasn't chaos. This was instinct, purpose. Citizens watched with growing unease. Someone whispered, "This is the fourth day in a row. That's not normal." Someone else said, "Dogs remember things humans can't." Lucas took a step back. His face was pale. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the cart. And there was something new in his expression. Not fear, not guilt, but sorrow. Sorrow so deep it seemed carved into him. Officer Daniels tried again, voice calm but firm. "Sir, if there's something you're not telling us, we need to know." Lucas shook his head, tears gathering. "No, you don't need to know. They do." He gestured toward the dogs, toward Rex, whose eyes were burning with recognition and longing. Rex closed the distance slowly, purposefully. He brought his nose to Lucas's sleeve again, pushing deeper, searching for something hidden. Then his nose paused on a faint patch of fabric near Lucas's shoulder. A scent, old, smoke-touched, painful, but unforgettable. The same scent Rex had once pressed his face into, seeking comfort during the worst night of his life. A scent he hadn't smelled in 2 years. His body trembled. Finn let out a yelp, a soft cry that sounded eerily like mourning. The officers froze. Something was happening, something they were no longer willing to brush aside. Rex lifted his head, his eyes locked onto Lucas's with a raw, pleading intensity. Tell them what we already know." Lucas turned away, covering his face with one shaking hand. He whispered brokenly, "I tried to disappear so they'd never feel this pain again." But fate, and the dogs, had found him. The officers exchanged a quick, uneasy glance. Lucas's words didn't match the man they thought they knew. The quiet sanitation worker who swept leaves before dawn, who nodded politely, who never caused trouble. But the dogs, they knew something else. Rex stepped forward again, gently pressing his forehead into Lucas's arm, a gesture reserved only for someone the dog trusted deeply, someone from his past. Officer Martinez exhaled shakily. "Rex doesn't do that with strangers." "Sir, who are you?" Lucas didn't answer. Instead, he sank slowly to his knees, as if his legs could no longer hold the weight of the secret he'd been dragging with him for 2 long years. His cart rattled behind him. Fallen leaves swirled quietly across the pavement. The small crowd went silent. Finn approached him cautiously, nose brushing Lucas's hand. Bolt paced in tight circles, agitated. Not aggressive, but overwhelmed. Shadow lowered himself beside Rex, both dogs staring at Lucas with aching recognition. Finally, Lucas spoke. His voice cracked. "I wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this town. Not anywhere near police dogs again. I left everything behind. I changed my life. I thought time would help. But dogs don't forget. Not real partners. Not real heroes." Officer Daniels stepped closer. "Partners? Were you a handler?" Lucas shook his head violently. "No, not a handler." His breath shuddered. "I was with them the night Bravo died." The name hit the officers like a gust of cold wind. Bravo. The legendary canine who went missing during the Cedar Ridge wildfire. The dog Rex had trained with since puppyhood. The dog the entire state mourned. The dog whose final moments were still a mystery. Martinez stiffened. "Sir, how do you know about Bravo? That case was never made public." Lucas wiped his eyes with the back of his shaking hand. "Because I was there when he took his last breath." The dogs reacted instantly. Ember whined. Shadow crawled closer. Koda lowered his head, and Rex let out a long, trembling howl. The kind of howl a dog makes only for a fallen brother. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Officer Daniels knelt beside Lucas. "Sir, I need you to explain exactly what happened." Lucas nodded slowly, painfully. "I will," he said. "But you have to understand. I didn't run because I was guilty." He looked at Rex, eyes full of grief. "I ran because Bravo died in my arms. And I thought Rex would never forgive me." The officers froze. The street froze. Rex didn't. He stepped forward, pressed his muzzle against Lucas's chest, and closed his eyes. Forgiveness had already been given. For a long moment, no one moved. Even the autumn wind seemed to pause, holding its breath as Lucas finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, silent, loaded with memories he'd fought to bury. "It was 2 years ago," he began quietly. "The Cedar Ridge wildfire. The one that came out of nowhere and swallowed half the forest before anyone understood what was happening." The officers remembered. Everyone in Colorado remembered. But no one knew what had really happened deep inside the smoke that night. Lucas continued. "I wasn't a sanitation worker back then. I wasn't even living here. I was a firefighter." His voice cracked on the last word. Finn scooted closer, resting his chin on Lucas's knee. "I was part of the search team sent into the Western Ridge," Lucas said. "Visibility was zero. Trees were falling, radios were failing, and then we heard barking, desperate barking." He looked at Rex, who was staring back at him with wide, glistening eyes. "It was Bravo." The name trembled through the air like a ghost returning. He was trapped under a fallen beam. Smoke everywhere. He was still trying to crawl, still trying to get out and continue the search, even though he could barely breathe. Ember whimpered softly. "I cut through debris with my axe, pulled him free, carried him through the fire, but—" Lucas's voice dropped. His lungs were already gone. He kept pushing his head into my chest like he didn't want me to put him down. He fought so hard to stay alive. Rex stepped even closer, resting his paw on Lucas's leg. "And right before he died," Lucas whispered, "he looked toward the direction of the station, as if he wanted to go home. To you." Rex's breath trembled. He nudged Lucas again, harder, this time with understanding, not searching. Officer Martinez swallowed. "Lucas, if you saved him, why did you disappear?" Lucas wiped his eyes, but the tears didn't stop. "Because the department needed someone to blame," he said. "Bravo's GPS collar was found later in a pile of collapsed timber. They thought I abandoned him. They thought I left him behind." He shook his head, grieving. "I couldn't face the accusations. I couldn't face Rex. I thought, and if he smelled me again, he'd know it was my fault." There was silence. Then Shadow broke it, by pressing his muzzle into Lucas's arm, offering the same silent comfort police dogs give to victims, survivors, and heroes who don't believe they're heroes. Lucas looked down at them, all 6 dogs surrounding him. "They remember Bravo through me," he whispered. "The smoke, the ash. His scent was on my jacket that night. And no matter how much life I've lived since then, dogs don't forget loyalty." The officers looked at Rex. Rex stepped forward and rested his entire weight against Lucas's chest, forgiving him, recognizing him, thanking him. And in that moment, the truth was no longer a secret. It was a reunion. The officers stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or simply witness what was unfolding. Lucas knelt on the pavement, surrounded by 6 dogs, whose instincts had overridden years of training, because something deeper, older, stronger was pulling them. Forgiveness, recognition, grief rediscovered, not feared. Rex was the first to act. He pressed his forehead firmly into Lucas's chest, a gesture so intimate that every handler watching felt a lump rise in their throat. Rex wasn't just leaning. He was shielding Lucas, claiming him, accepting him. Then Shadow moved in, curling quietly against Lucas's side like a silent guardian. Ember rested her chin on Lucas's knee. Finn nudged his trembling hand until Lucas finally placed his palm on the young dog's head. Bolt, restless, anxious, always pacing, finally stopped. He lay down at Lucas's feet, tail tapping slowly, the way dogs do when they're reassuring someone who's hurting. Koda sat behind Lucas, forming the final corner of the circle. 6 dogs. 1 man. A perfect ring of protection. Officer Martinez swallowed hard. "They're comforting him," Officer Daniels nodded slowly. "They're doing a grief ritual. Dogs only do that when they recognize someone as part of their pack." Lucas covered his face with both hands, his shoulders shaking. Not from fear, not from guilt, but from the overwhelming weight of relief. "I thought they would hate me," he whispered through tears. "I thought Rex would hate me." Rex lifted his head, stared into Lucas's eyes with a softness that didn't belong to a hardened canine leader, and did something that made everyone gasp. He licked Lucas's cheek. Once. Slow, deliberate. A gesture of acceptance that shattered the last of Lucas's defenses. "They don't blame you," Officer Martinez said quietly. "They're trying to tell you the same thing Bravo would have told you if he could." Lucas sobbed harder. Because deep down, he knew. Bravo hadn't died resenting him. Bravo had died clinging to him, trusting him until the final breath. And now, Rex and the others were here to deliver that message themselves. The past wasn't punishing Lucas. It was forgiving him. Lucas wiped his face, though the tears kept falling. The dogs stayed around him, quiet, loyal, steady, like they were helping him carry a weight he'd held alone for far too long. "There's one thing I never told anyone," Lucas whispered. "Not even the fire department. Not even the investigators." Officer Daniels knelt beside him. "You can tell us now," Lucas nodded slowly. "When I found Bravo under that fallen beam, he wasn't trying to crawl away from the fire." Rex's ears twitched. "He was trying to go back," the officer stiffened. "Back where?" Martinez asked. Lucas looked at Rex, voice trembling. "Toward the canyon, toward the place where he last smelled a missing hiker. Even while he was dying, Bravo was trying to finish his search." Shadow whined softly, as if he too could feel the truth settling into the air. Lucas continued. "I carried him through the smoke. I kept telling him we were going home, that he had done enough, but he kept pushing his head against my chest, like he was trying to tell me he wasn't done yet. He kept lifting his paw toward the canyon, over and over." He pressed a hand to his heart. "Bravo didn't die running away. He died trying to save one more life." Silence fell, heavy, respectful, reverent. The dogs reacted first. Rex lifted his head proudly. Bolt rose to his feet. Ember blinked slowly, eyes shining. Koda made a soft grunt, the sound he used when acknowledging bravery. And Finn, young but wise enough to understand emotion, let out a hopeful, fragile bark. Almost a salute. Lucas's voice cracked again. "That's why I left. People thought I abandoned him. They didn't know he died, doing exactly what he was trained and born to do. They didn't know he was a hero." Martinez's eyes softened. "That wasn't your burden to carry alone." Lucas shook his head. "I just couldn't face Rex. Bravo loved him more than anything. I thought Rex would know instantly. That I failed him." Rex stepped closer. He touched Lucas's chest with his nose, the same spot where Lucas had carried Bravo through the fire. A message passed between them, silent but unmistakable. "Bravo didn't die because of you. He died trusting you, and that trust lives in us now." Lucas broke down completely, but for the first time in 2 years, his tears weren't from guilt. They were from healing. Word spread through Cedar Falls faster than anyone expected. By evening, nearly everyone had watched the viral video. 6 canines surrounding a crying sanitation worker, comforting him like he was one of their own. The comments were divided at first. Who is that guy? Did he know the dogs before? Why are they acting like he's family? But it wasn't until the department released a statement, one they had avoided for 2 years, that the town finally understood what had happened the night Bravo died. Bravo hadn't been abandoned. He hadn't been lost. He had been saved, carried out of a burning forest by a man who risked his life for a dog that wasn't even his. By sunrise the next day, Lucas's world was completely different. He wasn't invisible anymore. When he arrived at Main Street, broom in hand, people stopped to greet him. A shop owner stepped out with a warm cup of coffee. A mother helped her child hand Lucas a thank you card covered in crayon drawings of dogs. Lucas was overwhelmed, embarrassed, touched in ways he didn't know how to process. But nothing compared to the moment the K9 unit walked toward him that morning. This time, there was no chaos, no resistance, no tension. The dogs broke formation only once, and it wasn't out of confusion. It was out of joy. Rex trotted straight to Lucas, tail wagging slowly, proudly. He leaned his massive head into Lucas's stomach like he had been waiting years to give this greeting. Shadow and Ember pressed close on either side. Finn practically bounced. Koda sat at Lucas's feet like a stoic bodyguard. Bolt nudged Lucas's hand until he finally placed his palm on Bolt's neck. The officers stood a few feet back, letting it happen. "He's part of their story now," Officer Martinez said quietly. "Honestly, he always was," Officer Daniels replied. Lucas looked up, eyes watery. "I don't deserve this." Martinez stepped forward. "Lucas, Bravo died a hero because you gave him the chance. Rex knows that. All of them know that." Lucas tried to speak, but his voice broke. "I thought I stole Rex's partner from him." "You didn't," Martinez said firmly. "You honored him." Then something happened that none of the officers expected. Rex stepped back, lifted his face toward the sky, and let out a long, low howl. Not the mournful one he gave earlier, but a proud one, a salute. The other dogs joined in, one by one, their voices blending into a resonant chorus that echoed down Main Street. It wasn't grief. It was remembrance, respect. A ritual of closing a wound that had been open far too long. Pedestrians stopped. Cars idled. Some people cried softly, without knowing why. Lucas closed his eyes and let the sound wash over him. It felt like Bravo's farewell, delivered by the 6 hearts that had loved him as fiercely as Rex once had. And for the first time in 2 years, Lucas felt the weight lift from his shoulders. Not erased, not forgotten, but finally understood. 2 weeks passed, and Cedar Falls felt strangely different. Warmer, quieter, more connected. People still talked about the viral video, but the conversation had shifted. No one referred to Lucas as the sanitation worker anymore. He had a new name now, the man who carried Bravo. At first, Lucas didn't know how to handle the attention. He still arrived at work before sunrise, hoping to avoid the morning crowds. He swept the sidewalks, emptied the bins, and hummed his soft, familiar tune. But his solitude never lasted long. Because every morning, right on schedule, 6 police dogs would appear at the corner. Eyes bright, tails slow wagging, bodies humming with anticipation. And without fail, they would break formation and trot straight toward him, forming a gentle circle of fur, warmth, and welcome. Even the officers began adjusting their route to make sure Main Street was always included. "It keeps them calm," Officer Martinez explained with a grin. "It keeps him calm, too," Daniels added quietly. Lucas didn't deny it. Seeing the dogs, especially Rex, healed something inside him he thought was permanently broken. Each nudge of a nose, each soft whine, each patient gaze reminded him Bravo had not died alone. He had died trusting him. One morning, Officer Martinez approached Lucas with a quiet smile. "Mind joining us at the station today?" "We want to show you something." Lucas hesitated, nerves tightening his chest. The last time he had been in a station like that, everything fell apart. Accusations, doubt, shame. But when Rex pressed against his leg, urging him forward, Lucas nodded. The K9 facility was bright and well kept. Photos lined the walls. Dogs past and present, each with their own legacy. At the very end of the hallway hung a large, framed portrait of Bravo. Lucas stopped. The memory hit him like a warm wave, but not painful, not anymore. Below the portrait was a small, newly installed plaque. Bravo, K9 officer, fell in the line of duty, never forgotten, carried by a hero. Lucas's breath caught. Why put my name there?" Martinez shook his head gently. "Because you earned it. Because Bravo's last moments deserve the truth. And because the dogs," he nodded toward Rex, who sat proudly at Lucas's side. "They chose you, long before we understood why." Then the sergeant stepped forward with an envelope. Inside was a part-time employment badge. Animal Care Assistant, Cedar Falls Police K9 Unit. Lucas stared at it as if it couldn't possibly be real. Why would you offer me this?" Daniels smiled softly. "Because Rex refuses to start his shift until he sees you. Because Ember cries whenever she passes the corner where you kneel. Because the pack has made their decision." He gestured toward the 6 dogs, all sitting in a perfect semicircle, staring at Lucas with bright, expectant eyes. "And because every K9 unit deserves someone who understands sacrifice." Lucas's throat tightened. He dropped to his knees, and all 6 dogs rushed in, crowding him with affection. Rex placed his paw on Lucas's shoulder, the same silent oath he had once shared with Bravo. Lucas closed his eyes, letting the warmth surround him. For the first time in 2 years, he felt whole. Not a man running from the past, not a ghost wandering with guilt, but someone who belonged, someone the dogs trusted, someone Bravo would have wanted him to be. The healing was complete. Some stories don't end with grand ceremonies or medals. Some end quietly, on a small town street, with a man kneeling among 6 loyal dogs who refuse to forget the truth. Because animals remember what we often overlook: the scent of sacrifice, the echo of courage, the heartbeat of loyalty. Lucas thought he carried guilt, but what he really carried was Bravo's trust. And Bravo's pack, Rex, Shadow, Bolt, Ember, Koda, and Finn, made sure he finally understood that. They didn't need words. Their forgiveness came in the form of a nudge, a paw on the shoulder, a circle of warmth saying, "You are one of us." Sometimes heroes don't wear badges. Sometimes they sweep sidewalks at dawn. And sometimes the bravest spirits live in the ones who never ask to be seen. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because every paw print carries a story, and every story reminds us that loyalty never dies.